Sit at My Grave, Chapter 9. Wind whistled outside. Trees swaying through the air, snapping up the weaker branches. Thunder crashed out loudly. Bright blue lightning shined through the windows. The clouds were dark and angry, swallowing up the moon and the stars. Arden tried to fall asleep, but he kept waking back up. Either it was that awful storm outside, or he was still riled up from his argument with Reed. Either way, this tossing and turning wasn't working. Arden leaned himself up, feet flat to his bed now, knees arched. He ran his hand down his face. Reed's words about him not knowing anything and how he did a lot for him really made him angry. He remembered seeing Reed front row at his other graduations or any other event he was roped into doing. He always had a camera to record him. He stood out in the crowd because of all the dumb faces he would make up at him. He was showing up to mock him any type of help. He was just waiting to catch him mess up, record it, and mock him later. Honestly, Arden felt like if he should thank anyone for help, it'd be his father. Although he wasn't around as much as he would like, it was because he was always on business. He'd even sent extra money to help him pursue any hobbies he actually enjoyed. He didn't get to talk to him much besides on the phone. It was because he worked so hard for the family. Reed has the nerve to say I don't understand, that I need to grow up, Arden thought bitterly. He endured being ostracized by his peers, whilst Reed, as far as he'd seen, had always had friends and support. Despite his irresponsible, reckless behavior, it seemed like childish things to fight about when he simplified it like that. It had been stretching for years of resentment. Living under the same roof for so long and being so opposite of each other took its toll. They'd been waiting years to say some of the stuff they said tonight. Arden's mind drifted from his anger at Reed to his other classmates too. Honestly, Arden didn't blame his old classmates much. They didn't want to open their minds to what he had found. How could they? They were all so idiotic in Arden's eyes, so stuck in their own bubbles it was amusing to him. Arden grabbed his book. When his fingers touched the pages, he felt a shudder ripple through his body. It seemed to go all the way to his head, leaving him feeling lightheaded afterwards. He frowned, laying back some. The feeling in his head faded away, but a tingly feeling replaced it. He couldn't exactly describe what was happening. It was odd, but it wasn't painful. Arden began looking for incantations he could use on his own. Sure, he liked that Gallon was there with him for what they'd done before, but he didn't want to depend on anyone for furthering his education in these processes. And besides, after graduation, he'd be alone anyways. Gallon would most likely be off to some college. His mother could have a break from keeping house, and Reed was hopefully out of his life now. They have all the time in the world to study. Surely years of drifting through will give these people a lot more wisdom than everyone here. They'd be people worth talking to, Arden thought, referring to the spirits he planned on getting acquainted with. He didn't need anyone around, really. His mother had always mentioned him and his brother understood each other and had a good connection. But as Arden grew older, he minimized the bonding moments they shared. He saw them as distractions and a nuisance, really. He never gave you the respect and guidance you wanted. Even tonight he abandoned you. He had chance after chance, but he never fixed things like he should have. Then he had the audacity to blame you? There's no need for him. He's a screw-up. Life is already getting better without him there waiting for you to fail. Arden agreed with these thoughts. Those are things he believed, although he could have sworn he heard someone else saying them. Arden flipped a page in his book. That shudder came over him again. He was reading, but his thoughts were running rampant. It was like hearing three things at once. His thoughts that agreed with him, and the words on his pages. It was a harmony of chaos. Thunder rumbled outside loudly once again, but Arden heard it muffled. Too many things in his head were taking up space, and the more he focused on the chatter in his brain, the quieter everything else around him got. Everyone looked down on me. Even when we might last see each other, they voted me least likely to succeed. They're the ones so afraid to expand what they know, Arden thought as he read, but his thoughts were again overlapped. Even with all you went through, he didn't help you, but he stands on that pedestal like you're supposed to praise him for mocking you. Who does he think he is? He's laughed and added to the misery, and thinks he's the victim? He deserves what's coming to him. The words flowed through Arden's brain. It was a buzz of those things and memories of him getting upset at the mistreatment going through his head. Arden didn't notice when he stopped gliding his finger across the words of his book. He didn't even recognize he'd started reading through it so smoothly. He was focused on so many things at once. but not retaining exactly what he'd started doing. As Arden started coming to the end of the page he was reading, his eyes scanning across the words, he felt his head begin aching. It throbbed worse and worse as he got closer to finishing. He inwardly groaned from the pain. It was so bad his head began heating up. It was like he had gotten a fever. The veins in his head pulsing with stinging hot ache. Arden couldn't tell if he was asleep and dreaming, or awake and experiencing one of the most intense paranormal sessions ever. He didn't remember reading about this before. It was like he could feel the anger and resentment coursing through his veins, and intensified like pulses through his body as he held the book. His mind concentrated on the biggest source of that anger. The things he agreed with seemed to mesh together. Although it was slim and faint, he didn't feel like if he focused on other things, he could have snapped out of it. But he stayed where he was. Arden remembered thinking if it was a dream, he would be fine, and if it wasn't, his mind was too strong to be swayed. He could survive whatever was happening coherently. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't afraid. He'd fortified his brain for too long to be anything but confident and curious. Arden groaned out loudly this time. His vision blurred. He grabbed his head tightly, trying to soothe the pain. With his hands off the book now, it slammed shut on his own. Arden's eyes shot open hearing that. He stared at it in confusion. He tried to stand up. He needed to gather himself. He felt woozy and ill. He couldn't understand exactly what was going on, but he needed to get out of that room. Wetness seemed to drip from his face as he finally got out of bed. Was he sweating? Was it that hot? He reached to wipe it only to feel something warm or sticky. He brought his hand closer to his face, and to his horror he realized it was bleeding. What's going on? Arden silently questioned. He took a few steps forward, his vision blurred again, focusing and unfocusing. His legs felt heavy, but still he pushed on. He just barely made it to his door when everything went black. Arden gasped out loudly as he woke up. He was laying on his side, still in bed. The headache was gone. Everything seemed calm compared to what he'd just gone through. He still heard the storm outside, and gazing around his room, things seemed normal. Arden slowly reached towards his face, still confused. Had he been dreaming the entire thing? Or had something actually happened? That part was hard to tell. Suddenly, music chimed, causing him to jump a little, cursing under his breath. He grabbed his phone in confusion. It was headed to the AM territory by now, but it was still black dark outside. Most people should be asleep. Finally, he picked up. Listen, man, Reed began talking. Arden frowned, now started to focus on what he could remember correctly. Why are you calling me? I thought we had an understanding, Arden answered back. I broke down. My phone's about to die, Reed told him. He sounded exhausted, not wanting to engage in their argument or beat around the bush this time. So? Arden questioned, arching an eyebrow. So, I texted you my address. I need to be picked up. I'm not by any... Reed started again, but Arden cut him off with a scoff. I don't have a car. Call Mom. Stop bothering me, Arden said coldly. She's not home right now. It'd be easier if you just call someone to pick me up. Or, call Gallon's folks. I don't have a lot of time left on this thing. Reed tried to rush it along. He didn't sound desperate, but it was obvious he was in a bind. I don't know what you didn't understand from earlier, but if you think I'm going to rush out of bed to help you after all you've done, you're more of an idiot than I originally thought, Arden told him. He smirked a bit, although angry and taken aback by Reed asking for his help. A piece of him liked the fact that he needed him for something. Even though he was reckless, Reed never really asked for help from anyone for anything. He seemed to handle whatever on his own. He especially didn't ask Arden for help. Will you stop the monologue? Come on, Arden, I'm broke down. I'm in some sketchy spot. Call someone for me, Reed said with a tired sigh. Figure it out, Arden told him. Arden were brothers, Reed tried to reason with him, almost sounding shocked. Only by blood, Arden responded. He expected Reed to start arguing with him again, but the phone cut off. Must have ran out of power, Arden assumed. Arden was pretty exhausted himself from everything. He knew Reed would be angry with him in the morning. Most likely his mother would be too. But he figured he'd deal with it all later. He was tossing and turning earlier, but now he found a peaceful warmth. He could barely keep his eyes open, and finally he put his phone away and fell asleep.